Well, thank you for coming. We realize that you have busy days, and pardon my tale, but we did realize that while all are making a best effort to be here, some can't. And so we're going to record this and be able to at least provide a link for those who maybe could not watch it, or those who were here and just want to see it again and again and again, click and watch it. Okay, so we spent the last 6 months kind of evolving and doing a deeper dive on our brand here. And part of that was the formation of this statement, Building a Better Southern Arizona, which is kind of our brand statement. So we're going to talk about how we got there, that process, but as it relates to you, what that's going to mean for you as you are on the air during Pledge, how that affects your messaging. So you probably know very well, if you know us, you know that, we're here to educate, inform, inspire, and connect our community by bringing people and ideas together. What we've added to that was very important, all to enhance our community bond and help build a better Southern Arizona. So that's what we're going to talk about, and again, how it's going to affect your messaging during Pledge. How do we sell our brand? Okay. It's a great question. I got here and I said, what's your brand? And I got a lot of PBS, NPR, AZPM. Well, those are entities, but that's not a brand. A brand is that emotional attachment you have to something, right? So is it the programs, because we are, as I said, PBS and NPR, but they have their own distinct brand. So our brand can't be that we are affiliates of those program entities. Do we sell our brand by our product? We got great shows, but not really. You sell a brand by selling, thank you, an experience. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. Because people don't buy what you do. Maybe you've heard this. They buy, anyone know it? Can you complete it? They buy why you do it. Yeah. Watch his TED Talks. Okay. And so let's take this conventional marketing concepts. I got a little Acer computer there, and so you see a computer commercial. Maybe it's hey, we've got nice computers with big screens and large hard drives and lots of RAM, and they're affordable. You should buy some. That's conventional messaging, right? We got cars, luxuriously appointed, good, gas mileage. You should buy it, right? That's going from the what to the why, outside in. But leaders start with the why. Start with the why. So leaders in technology, Apple would say, our why is we believe in everything we do, we challenge the status quo. We think differently. We challenge the status quo by making our products beautifully designed, easy to use, and user-friendly. We also just happen to make computers. Would you like to buy one? So instead of starting with, hey, there's some stuff we got, let us sell it to you, it's like, here's what we believe about the world. You're probably like-minded. Hey, spend some money with us. So as that relates to us, what is our why? We went through this process here. Now, I'm new to the market. I was in Phoenix for 3.5 years, and before that, Northern California. And I still have a home up in Chandler, and there's a lot to like about Phoenix, but it took me about a minute to realize that Phoenix and Tucson are completely different. And that's just a fact. When I was at the TV stations up there, I was trying to get a sense of, that's a big geographical footprint up there. You've got Queen Creek and Gilbert and Chandler and Tempe and Ahwatukee and Mesa and Glendale and Goodyear and Avondale and Buckeye and Scottsdale and Cave Creek and Peoria and Surprise. Just massive. I said, so how do we, what's the common bond here? There is none. So I was told there is none. People in Gilbert don't know people in Avondale, people in Buckeye don't know people in Scottsdale, they don't talk to each other. Well, I come here, it's like, this is completely different. There is a strong sense of place and pride in Southern Arizona. a tangible feeling of community that connects us to our audiences. People who live in Southern Arizona see this as their home, but it is more than just a place of residence. It is a place where they belong, that belongs to them. Now that's just, maybe I got that wrong, but it took me like a minute to figure out. I think that's actually right. Okay, so Arizona Public Media, again, took 2 minutes to figure this out. It's a vital part of that community. Programming reminds Southern Arizonans why their home is so special. It embraces history and culture that is unique to the area. I mean, people love what we have to offer here because it ties into the community, and they sense that. So because we care, and because we are part of the community, that is why AZPM is dedicated to building a better Southern Arizona. So, for us, and again, it's been a process for me. You know, I still commute in sometimes, and I was commuting in, I think it was late March, or maybe early April, during a pledge. And I was listening, and this is pretty standard, so it's not a knock on anyone, but you know, your standard pledge messaging might be, there's great programs we have here. You know you love them. They cost a lot of money. If you don't give us money, you're going to lose them. Yeah, that's a you problem, I guess. You know, right? Get some more money, you know. Versus, we believe in building a better Southern Arizona. We believe in uplifting our community. We show that in our thought-provoking programs and content and events that we put forth for the community. If you're like-minded and feel the same way, join us or support us. Completely different. So better ask. And so that's what we're trying to get here. So when we're doing this, we want a brand voice. And again, you know, I spent more time than I care to admit in a commercial broadcast and a couple of years with the California Highway Patrol. And it's a different type of communication here. When we talk to our audience, we're aspirational. And that's right, because if you look at our programming, that's what it is, right? People want to be better, be smarter. I mean, you know, some of you guys are pretty like Mensa. I get a vibe, a Mensa vibe from the room. But for people like me, I need to be smarter, and so I want to be smarter, you know, or more creative, or a better cook, or just more informed. Okay, we speak to that. Okay, so we're aspirational when we talk to people about our programming. We're empowering. Again, you know, in my prior life, you know, it's a lot of messaging about, you know, is your tap water killing you tonight at 11? You know, just really sound familiar, right? You know, just talking down to people. Actually, no, it's not. I drink it every day, you know. We're empowering, okay? One thing I've noticed that is strong here, actually throughout the state, is that very much a can-do attitude. And so give us the information, okay? We'll seek it out, and we'll determine how to best use that, okay? You empower us with your programming, your information. So we're aspirational, we're empowering, and we're also familial. You know, this is our home and our family. There exists a strong community bond. Arizona Public Media is a part of that community. We care about our community and our neighbors. That is why when we're working to build a better Southern Arizona, okay, it is important that when people engage with AZPM, they are left with the feeling that we are one of them. So we're not talking at them on the air. You know, we're talking to ourselves, basically, okay? Because we are that community. So that brand voice, aspirational, empowering, familial. We use it to tell stories. Earlier we said that we sell a product brand with experiences, right? We tell stories. I need an apple. This Acer, okay. Marketing is no longer about the stuff you make, but about the stories you tell, right? Because we could go on and say, hey, yeah, you know, this is great, you know, Pole Dark, you know, or what is it? Pole Dark and Handsome, you know, love that. Yeah. I get that right? Just see, I got you. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Love that show, right? But I mean, that's great, but there's got to be something bigger that really attaches to people. Because I will tell you, where I came from previously, we would tell people, okay, watch our news at 11, watch our news at 10. And the truth is, and most people figured it out, it's pretty much the same. And here, no offense, I have friends in commercial broadcast here, whether it's, KVOA or, KGUN or, KOLD. There's not new news they've created, it's the same news. And so you watch out of habit. I was watching Dancing with the Stars, and I want to change the channel, Or, well, I know that anchor, I've seen him for 15 years, so I'll just stay here. But the news is pretty much the same for the most part. When you watch content on AZPM or listen to content, whether it's NPR, PBS, or our local content, that's not stuff you're going to find other places. And you know that. So you make a specific effort to come to AZPM as a viewer. That is a great platform to work from. And not only that, they don't have to pay, but people pay to watch and listen to this content. So what a great place to market from. But we need to market from a place of being positive, aspirational, empowering, and part of the community. So we tell these stories. Best way to sell a product is to tell stories. So the question for you is, what is your story? Now, one of the things that I noticed when I got here is that we have a lot of promotion on the air, but didn't talk a lot about our value proposition, what makes us special. A lot of sponsored programs and things, a lot of stuff for PBS National, but nothing about AZPM. But then come pledge time, we start talking about, hey, we're great, it's great. And so, well, this is nutty, because it's like we have to court people if we want to develop a relationship. Because it's not about getting money from people, it's about developing a relationship with people so they feel like they want to join us. And then the action is they will pay money. And so, for a courtship, an old, ugly, bald-headed guy like me, I got to work real hard. I just can't say, hey, you look good, let's go out for dinner tonight. You got to stop, please, pump your brakes. No. Handsome fella, yeah, there you go, see? It's just like, but for me, I got to work at it. We need to work at it. So if you watch us now, you will see spots on the air every day that talk about why we matter, what we mean to the community. Here's an example of one of them. And as you look at this short little promo, he's also made it personal. And so as you develop your stories, think about that personal feeling that you have for AZPM and how that relates to how viewers might relate to that as well.
When I was a kid, my father was the smartest person I ever knew. He once told me, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that what Arizona Public Media shows is that we can increase how much we know, and that makes us care all the more about this community. And I think that our community is better for it. And that's why I support Arizona Public Media. We are able now to have access to information like never before. But to get that kind of information in an unbiased way is really a hallmark of AZPM. I think sometimes these things that are always on, always available to us, are often taken for granted. And this is a resource, a jewel that we can't afford to take for granted.
He tells you why it's important to him and to the community. So, think about that as you prepare for this coming weekend and the week following, as you will go on the air and share your personal belief as to why this matters, why it's important. All right, so that's how we got to our brand place. So Kevin, you know him, you love him. He's going to come talk to you about essentially how it's going to work inside the booth. Because we're not going to, don't think we're changing. It's not about, I got to tell a story every 2 minutes. No, but the story is the center of your time there. But Kevin's going to walk you through your booth time, and then I answer any other questions that you may have. So come on up, Kevin.
I'm going to kind of dovetail off of what Gene was talking about and help you think about what story you might want to tell. A number of years ago, there was a PBS television spot that really moved me, and it is exactly what we're trying to do with the Build a Better Southern Arizona brand. There was a teacher in front of a class of students, elementary school students, and he's in front of the chalkboard, and he's writing on the board, and it's a black and white spot, and it kind of zooms in on the teacher as he's teaching, and he starts to get this blue aura, which is pretty, startling in a black and white spot. And you're wondering why he's turning blue. And pans off of him to the students in his classroom, and one by one, they each start to get the same blue aura as they're listening and responding to what the teacher is saying. It then cuts to out in the hallway, and the students are around their lockers, and they begin to also, as one student is talking to his friends, all get the same blue glow, and then it culminates around the dinner table with that same student then sharing the information with his family. And that is exactly what we do here at Arizona Public Media every day. And so I want you to kind of have that story in the back of your head and think about times that you've been moved, touched, or you've shared a story with friends and what that meant to you, your quality of life, and concretely how that really did make for a better Southern Arizona. So on the handouts that were either on your chair or given to you when you came in, I just want to welcome Laura up and go over some of these stories.
I'm going to stand awkwardly close
Or
to
you
you.
want to just hold that mic?
Oh, this mic, yes.
Yes. And so these are just stories, and I'm going to talk about why each of them resonates. But whenever you're ready.
I benefit most from the personal nature of your programming and reporting, whether it's a StoryCorps interview or the local news. You give us the voice of those being impacted by the stories that we hear. As Americans, most of us are set apart from these very real struggles. Without hearing the voices and stories of the individuals, the news programming would remain just updates of current events. I have laughed and cried with people that I will never see face to face, and yet they have affected me deeply. They add value to my life and allow me to care about them and others like them.
I think that's a really powerful story, and it ties exactly into what Jean was talking about. We never tell you what to think, but we provide the context, the hearing directly from a person that might be in a war zone, that might be facing some sort of problem here in the States, but you hear the stories through their own words and their own tone and their own take on it, and then that influences the way that we approach current events and things like that in the world. And I challenge any of you, you probably all stayed in your car during StoryCorps because you couldn't get out because the people telling their story was so riveting. And that's just an example of what we do every single day. So, for any of us to be considered educated or well-rounded, we have to experience life outside of ourselves. We have to get out of our backyards. That's why we always encourage people to travel, to broaden their horizons. While you don't need to spend $800 on a plane ticket, you can basically tune in at any time to any one of our services, and you get that same kind of broadening experience. So perspective leads to understanding. It really does breed more compassion, I think, in the world. And that's, again, another way that we're building a better Southern Arizona, is by bringing us all together. And so maybe kind of keep those ideas in the back of your mind. How have you been moved by a story or an experience? Or have you changed a point of view, possibly, through something that you've experienced with our organization?
An interview that you aired has inspired my middle school-age son to consider a career as a musical therapist. He plays several instruments, and upon hearing the interview, became invigorated by the idea of helping others using something that he loves so much. He was particularly touched when the professional being interviewed described being able to connect to the world of someone who otherwise may be disconnected from the outside world, as those with cerebral palsy or autism. He has geared his high school curriculum to explore this field, including requesting to be a special needs aide. Whether he ends up pursuing this career or not, the fact that your programming has inspired him to look outside himself and to engage others who are different from him is invaluable.
And so I like that story because it's exactly what Jean was talking about in terms of being aspirational. This young man was touched by a story and now possibly has a career path that he wants to pursue. So again, this really is material that does impact people and can make for a better Southern Arizona. So maybe there was a time in your life where you took a different track, maybe picked up a hobby or got passionate about some nonprofit because of a story that you heard on Arizona Public Media.
All of my voices are the same, so I am a devout listener to your musical programming, and last August, on a Saturday morning, which also happened to be my deceased husband's birthday, I wished his photograph a happy birthday, and with tears in my eyes, I asked for a sign that he heard me. I proceeded to get in my car for Sabbath services, and of course my radio is set to 90.5. I must interject here that my husband played piano and always serenaded me. One of the songs he loved to play was La Comparsita. That was a signal of love for us. However, when I turned the ignition key, there was a couple seconds of silence, and then suddenly La Comparsita sounded, and I could not believe my ears. I had asked for a sign, and lo and behold, I received one. You can imagine my reaction. I realized this was a total coincidence, but in my heart of hearts, I prefer to believe that my darling heard me. I am eternally grateful to you.
And that's a very moving story, and it shows that the listeners to our classical station, they know the physical and the emotional benefits. That's why they're tuning in of classical music. And so, many of you aren't, huge classical aficionados, but I'm sure that you'll always tune in if you want a little bit of respite, if you want a little bit of calmness, if you want to be invigorated by a number of the pieces. So again, the station is there as a companion, and at the same time, while you're, being entertained, you're also learning through our great announcers. So think of something that you've learned, try to weave a story, because again, we go back and forth between our NPR station and our classical station in fundraising. Ready for the last one?
Thank you, AZPM, for being a friend and teacher for over 30 years. There hasn't been a time I didn't rely on your stations. I loved Sesame Street and always wondered why HBO's Fraggles didn't love words the same way Big Bird did. I remember a repeated segment on 321 Contact called MathNet, a take on Dragnet. It was fun and helped me lose my fear of math. I was a sophomore in high school when I caught a fundraiser offering all episodes of Carl Sagan's The Cosmos. My parents donated for the set and I was hooked. I used birthday money my junior year to buy a telescope. In the process, I met Thomas Bopp, and my love of astronomy was sealed. My dad and I loved our NPR car debates and the great conversations we had running errands. It's public media's continual presence, always providing new exposure to unknown ideas, which really has the power to change people.
And again, what I liked about that story was, one, the stations had been here as that individual aged, and every step of the way there was something that they were getting from the organization. And again, just like in the other story, it's very aspirational. That person is learning stuff, and I loved the last sentence, new exposure to unknown ideas. Every time you tune in, I'm sure there's going to be a story that grips you, but it was a subject that you never otherwise thought you would have any interest in at all. So again, it's broadening our horizons, it's changing us, it's allowing us to then learn something from the station and share it with people who may never tune into any of our stations. So you're kind of paying it forward, you're passing it out, and really, truly, it does help to create a better Southern Arizona. So I hope that that kind of gets your brain turning a little bit and you come in prepared. When you do come in, I don't want you to have a speech that you want to read on the air. Come in with the ideas, maybe some bullet notes jotted down, and then I'll sit with you before each break and we'll kind of discuss what take and track we want to pursue. Again, we have 4 breaks for those of you that haven't done this before. 4 breaks per hour, 2 are on NPR, 2 are on classical. So bring your ideas in, and before each of those 4 breaks, we'll kind of flesh through and come up with what we're going to be talking about in that specific break. The other sheet that was left for you as you came in, some just simple do's and don'ts. They're pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, I just went over how to tell your story, so that's number 1 in my mind. That's what we want to be doing on the air during this campaign. Another thing that sometimes, because we all believe in what we're doing so much, that's why you guys are volunteering to come on the air with me, is we want to stay positive. If the phones are slow, which they tend to be midday, sometimes you might find yourself wanting to say, oh, we've only had 3 calls. Well, we want to lose the only part. You want to stay positive and say, it's fantastic. We've already had 3 calls, or we have 3 calls. You always want to stay positive in your messaging. Another catch is sometimes people say we've only raised X amount of dollars. Well, again, we want to remove the word only or just and stay positive, and because people want to join a winning team. That's what we're all about. Another trick is to really focus on one listener. So yes, you'll be having a conversation with your co-host, and you'll be talking maybe in generalities about the audience there. But when it comes to the ask, when you say, now, we'd love to hear from you, we want that you to be there. We never want to use phrases like, well, everyone listening right now, or all of you, because then that allows you subconsciously to kind of pass the buck. I don't have to do anything because that guy in traffic next to me is going to do it, because they're talking about everyone in the audience. So we really want to focus on one listener when we're getting down to the brass tacks. Now, in terms of don'ts, we want to avoid language that minimizes the value of AZPM, and so I'm sure all of you have heard either here or in other stations around the country, the coffee analogy. Well, we like to think that our product is longer lasting, certainly, but better than just having a cup of coffee. So we will kind of put that aside and really focus on storytelling as opposed to those price comparisons and things that theoretically could demean our brand. And then again, when you're giving suggested donation levels, avoid personal commentary as well. It's very easy to say for, only $5 a month as a sustainer. But when you say only, kind of can be kind of pejorative to certain people in the audience who possibly can't afford that $5. So again, in the track of staying positive, we want to lose those commentaries on certain things. We never want to assume anything about the people we're talking to. We just want them to realize the value of our brand and participate, if that makes sense. Again, and this doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it makes me grind my teeth. You're all from different wonderful organizations, and of course, we appreciate you coming in from your specific organizations, and your host will say where you're from, so we get your name out that way. But what we want to avoid is promotion for your organization. You're all volunteering to come in because you care enough about our organization. So let's not muddy the waters by discussing anything else besides the value of our brand here at Arizona Public Media and what brought you in, why you're so dedicated that you're giving up your time and your money to come and help, continue the success of Arizona Public Media. And then finally, the last one, nobody in this room has done it, but sometimes in the past, some talent with very good intentions will refer in, again, a pejorative manner to people that have yet to give, especially when things are slow and people get kind of desperate, and they'll say things like, don't be a deadbeat, make sure you participate. We don't want to insult our listeners. Nobody's a deadbeat. The way we refer to people that haven't given yet are just members or listeners who have yet to become members. And we like the word yet because it shows that that's something that we hope is going to happen. So that's basically it for my portion. Again, as Gene said, the format, for those of you that have done this before, the format's not changing. It's still the host opens and makes a case message, the case message being the case for support, case being telling your story, and we'll go back and forth. And then, of course, we then do the close, and that's where we do suggest levels. We do mention sustaining memberships or one-time gifts, and we do the nuts and bolts, so you can use your credit card, that kind of stuff. So it just keeps going back and forth between host and guest, case, close. And I'll be there to help orchestrate the whole thing. Any questions from anyone at this point? Jan?
Well, first of all, if we do it, do you want us to bring 2 stories?
I want you to bring a whole bag of
Or a whole
ideas.
bunch of stories?
Just bring a whole bag of ideas. If we don't get to them all, that's great. But like I said, we'll have a conversation beforehand. Robert?
So in an hour, I think these are 8-hour segments.
Correct, for the guest.
What is the time that you're on air?
The total number of minutes?
Yeah.
Well, it waxes and wanes. The NPR breaks are much more concrete because we have to match the national clock. And it depends on the pieces of music that are scheduled for the classical side. So typically, the NPR breaks are about 8 minutes long, depending on what show we're in. Morning Edition is a little bit shorter than it is, say, during the Diane Rehm show. And so we'll do an NPR break for 8 minutes. We'll probably have about 5 minutes to kind of catch our breath, regroup, get ideas for the next break. Then we'll do classical. And they tend to be about 6 minutes. Then we should have about 8 minutes off, again, coaching time. Then we'll do NPR and then end with classical.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a volley back and forth. Any other questions?
I know that in the last fundraising campaign, the focus was really on membership as opposed to a dollar goal.
Right.
And what's the focus for this one? Is it both or?
Well, no, it's going to be more financially driven. The goal is going to be $200,000, and so we'll be counting that down. But when we look at in terms of numbers of members calling, like we did that was the exclusive focus of our June campaign. It was just a short 2-day campaign, and we didn't focus on dollars. We focused on numbers of members. This time we'll be focusing on the dollars, but we'll have our hourly goals, just like before, where we'll say in this hour we'd love to hear from 10 people. So it'll kind of wax and wane. So to answer your question, we're doing both. Yeah.
Yeah, from listening, I just have a little tip for the 6 of us who are new.
Okay.
Sometimes people say, what is your favorite program? And even though we all have those favorite programs, when you're on air and you get asked that question, I've heard long pauses while people are trying to decide what to say. So I plan to come in with a list of my favorite programs.
Okay, and I appreciate that, but put that in the context of telling a story.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, because the one thing that does also make me grate my teeth is when, I love Ira Glass. I love Morning Edition. I can't imagine driving home without, All Things Considered. It's interesting, but it's not, You wouldn't be here if if you didn't love our shows. So you don't have to go through a laundry list. Tell a story about how these programs have impacted your quality of life.
What about giveaways? So over a 2-day period, you will be eligible for XYZ. Is that still something you want to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if your organization or you as an individual have a perk, talk to me about it and we can try to get that on the air. I'm sure those of you that have listened for a while always know that Jonas Wilder comes in. Doug Levy from Feast comes in, and they offer gift certificates. So if you have something that you'd like to offer as a possible incentive, then yeah, email me or talk to me one-on-one, and we can work that out.
What's
Preferably do it
the
before
deadline for getting those into?
Thursday.
This Thursday?
Yes. Yeah, this is probably too much insider talk. We use a rollover service. So sometimes if all of our phones are busy, we have an organization that we contract with, and they need to be made aware of any of the information that we're planning on doing on the air prior to the campaign so that they can inform their staff who answer the phones. They don't want their people to seem like they're out of the know. So if the person says, oh, can I still get in the gift certificate drawing? Those people that are outside of Tucson fielding those calls need to be aware of the information. Okay? Well, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.